Now, you've heard of the Nigerian Youth Parliament, but now comes the first ever Federal Capital Territory Youth Parliament, which is sort of like a state assembly for young people in Abuja. Its aim is to improve youth representation in the politics and government of the Nigerian capital, to help create positive, more inclusive change, and to make the world of young people in the FCT a better place. So, a chance for the next generation to start to hone their skills for possible careers in politics, public service, lawmaking and campaigning. But in a world in which many young people are apathetic to local politics, how much of a difference is this FCT Youth Parliament likely to make to the youth of Abuja? Well, for more on this, I'm joined now in the studio by the newly appointed chair of the newly inaugurated FCT Youth Parliament Committee on Diplomacy, Migration and International Cooperation, Honourable Princess Enito Tejuoso. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
What is it that drew you to this parliament?
I think it's the one that drew me to it. I wasn't someone who thought about politics.
Well, your father is a seasoned politician, isn't he?
Perhaps, but that's his path. I'm following my own path. And when I came to Nigeria, I grew up here. I've been gone for the past 10 years for school, did my high school, my undergrad, my master's, and decided to come back to Nigeria. My first thought wasn't to do anything in politics. It was to see what opportunities were there, to see how I can contribute, how I could add value. And so this particular appointment, I was called upon to join. You know, I currently work as a technical advisor at the Presidential Initiative for Unlocking the Healthcare Value Chain. It's focused on healthcare industrialization in Nigeria, but it requires a lot of multi-sectoral engagement, a lot of engagement with international partners, and really looking at how to integrate multiple stakeholders for the on the purpose of health, really.
Right.
And so I think that experience, sharing that experience, allow people to recognize that perhaps I could be a good fit for this position. And so when I heard about it, when I was called upon it, I thought it was also a great thing to add value to, especially as somebody who has come back to Nigeria from the United States. Looking at diplomacy, at migration, at international cooperation is something that I feel quite well versed in, and I'm excited to continue doing something like that here.
Well, that sounds very impressive. And to further impress people, you have a Master of Science from Harvard Medical School and a Bachelor's from Johns Hopkins University. So that's, I mean, that's pretty significant. But I mean, looking at the youth parliament, I mean, we have a Nigerian youth parliament, but this is Abuja specifically.
Yes.
And the idea, I suppose, is to bring the youth of Abuja, give them a platform, given that, you know, Abuja doesn't really have a state assembly, and so it's difficult to get their voice out there, isn't it? Yes. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, definitely. You know, Abuja was a city that was intentionally designed. You know, it's supposed to carry the future of Nigeria and be an example. But compared to states, there isn't like a governor or a real institutional body that's dedicated to that. And so something like the FCT Youth Parliament is a platform for that, it's a gateway for that. I think it's quite significant because I know in the diaspora you see that national identity is much stronger compared to locally here.
Indeed.
And the FCT is an area that's filled with people who came in. And so you have another opportunity to define national identity. When you look at the FCT Youth Parliament in particular, you have people who are representative of different localities within Abuja, but they're indigents of all over Nigeria. And so I think that's a very significant
It's a kind of melting pot,
exactly,
isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. So it's a significant opportunity to have such a diverse cohort to working towards the same location. Compared to the Nigerian Youth Parliament, it was, you know, started in 2008, and they're representatives from different states, all the states in Nigeria, but they are thinking about the interests of their state in particular. So what I find exciting about the FCT Youth Parliament is this ability to be able to bring the diverse voices of Nigeria focus it on one location. And I think really Abuja is the best place to do something like that.
And is there a political slant to this? Is there some partisanship? Is it sort of APC driven, or a PDP or whatever, or is it just completely apolitical?
I wouldn't say there's a political slant. Obviously, this is an initiative that was born out of the current administration.
Right.
But, you know, people there aren't waving a particular party's flag. We're here because we're young people, we care about Nigeria, we want to make a difference. So really, it's not anything partisan.
Right. So what's the barometer that we can use to accurately gauge what young people want, for instance, in the next presidential election? I mean, or what they want in Abuja here generally?
So your question is, how do we know what young people want?
I mean, I suppose you are a young person.
I am a young person.
but I mean, what's the barometer? Because you're going to have to, you kind of aggregate that, and then you take them to people who are not necessarily young people and convince them that this is what young people want. You see what I mean?
Yes, I get what you mean. But at the same time, I think when you create a parliament such as this, you try to get representatives from every aspect, every walk of life, as much as possible. There's no situation that's perfect, but I think there you can get a bit of an average. Again, I think another aspect of what we have to consider is the people that are there at the parliament. We are not the sole voices. We're aggregating voices. And so to answer your question, I would say that it's a step. We can't have a perfect measure, but we can always work towards ensuring that we're including voices, that we're going out of our way to listen.
Right, and you think you're going to be able to pull back the curtain for the politicians to really see and hear what's going on with the youth population here?
I believe so.
Right. And as far as you can see at the moment, are the leading politicians really saying things that the youth can get behind?
That's a good question. You know,
well, obviously you still have to do some sort of groundwork.
Yes, and I think right now my role is just learning the landscape, observing, gathering insights. But a lot of the conversations that I've been hearing about government and what young people think about what's going on, for example, the Nigeria First policy, things like that, I'm hearing people excited at the fact that we want to support like Nigerian industry, for example, but worried about social development, right? You know, we focus on trying to build out our industries, but are we putting in the same effort in educating people who are going to make up those industries and push them forward? So I think there's a lot of push in the right direction, but there is still a need to engage youth, create the social infrastructure that will allow us to build out the vision that current politicians are potentially trying to put forward.
Do you have political ambitions?
Do I have political ambitions? Good question. I guess we'll see what happens in the future.
Well, that's an open-ended question.
It is an
or answer. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
But you are there things in the political sort of space that are attractive to you?
I mean, what's attractive to me is impact, making value. I don't think that being in politics is the only way to do that. I've always been a champion of multi-sectoral engagement, working with the private sector, public sector. What I see politics as is
public service?
Public service, yes.
So are you a public servant at heart?
A public servant at heart? I believe so. And I wanted to say that I believe in designing our society. That's really what I see politics as. You're creating frameworks, you're trying to create structures in such a way that our natural flow of living allows us to create value, to create the lives that we desire. I think really at the end of the day, all of us just want to actualize ourselves. And it's the responsibility of government to create the right infrastructure, to have the right tools to let that happen. And so when you're working and you realize that there's probably not that foundation or that structure isn't there, you start to realize that perhaps you have to be part of the people designing what society needs to be like, which is what I think led me here.
Very good answer. On that note, I want to thank you very much indeed for coming in, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Honourable Princess Eniton Tejuoso is the newly appointed chair of the newly inaugurated FCT Youth Parliament Committee on Diplomacy, Migration and International Cooperation. And all the very best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed. That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, bye-bye, and thank you for watching.